Today I'm talking about Star Wars Master and Apprentice. This is Claudia Gray's latest Star Wars book. If you haven't read any of Claudia Gray's books, you should if you're a Star Wars fan. She has written Star Wars Bloodlines, Star Wars Lost Stars, which is my favorite Star Wars book, and she has also written Leia, Princess of Alderaan. All great reads, but this book just came out a few weeks ago. I picked it up, and I'm not the most avid reader, I'm not the quickest reader, but I really thoroughly enjoyed this book that I finished it pretty quickly. I couldn't put it down, I was really into it, written really well as usual, Claudia Gray. This book does take place before The Phantom Menace, and it's basically the relationship between Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it's already in the middle of them being a master and apprentice. It's not them meeting for the first time. By all means, they are already in a mission when you start this story, so they're already in the middle of a dilemma, and it really goes in depth from narrative to narrative and shows you what they're thinking at the time between themselves. So you get the narration from Obi-Wan Kenobi's side, and then you get the narration from Qui-Gon's side. Mainly Qui-Gon, because it has also a lot of flashbacks to when he was the Padawan for Dooku, and so it really shows the background and really the mindset that Qui-Gon is in, because it goes into depth with a lot of the Jedi prophecies that Dooku was really into, and ultimately basically started leading him towards the dark side, but Qui-Gon didn't know that at the time, and Qui-Gon as a Padawan became very intrigued and interested about the Jedi ancient scripts and the prophecies, and he began to study them and read all the holocrons, and then Dooku will find out and is concerned for him to be so interested in these. Rael Overos is another character that we are introduced to. He was also an apprentice of Dooku's, and he meets Qui-Gon Jinn early on when he's a kid, still a teenager, and he mentions the prophecies, and Qui-Gon had never really heard about them or knew a lot about them, and then he started to research them in Dooku. When he does find out that Qui-Gon is reading these, Dooku is concerned again, and it pretty much pulls Dooku back into all of those prophecies that I'm sure he has left behind before, because later it also is described and it's brought up by Yoda that pretty much because the prophecies are almost to be taken as a metaphor, and they come from ancient Jedi who pretty much had dreams and visions and gave them predictions about the future, and they wrote these prophecies to be seen as warnings to go by and to always live life as a Jedi by these kind of metaphors and to be cautious. But because they are kind of a look into the future, trying to control what's going to happen by living by these metaphors, by these prophecies, then it's a way to control the future, and that also leads to the dark side, as many other things do. So it really goes in depth into Qui-Gon's background as a Padawan, and then now as a master, because he feels so much self-doubt is what I got from Qui-Gon in this story. He felt all the time that he was failing Obi-Wan as a master, wasn't teaching him the right things the right ways. Obi-Wan even felt like that some ways, because he wasn't being taught all the next level tricks of a Jedi with a lightsaber. He felt like he was being left behind and not taught the right things right away. He's left in the library to study the holocrons and write down and read all these ancient Jedi prophecies, when all his fellow Padawans are learning cool tricks and going on missions and all this stuff. So we jump right into a mission that they are called for. The previous one the book starts with, it kind of again puts a riffle in between their relationship, because Obi-Wan doesn't always feel like he understands Qui-Gon. He's always very elusive and vague, and not always very direct in his teachings and his lessons for Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan feels like he just doesn't understand his master at all, and vice versa. They just don't feel like they're clicking, and it's kind of sad. And right off the bat as well, we learned that the Jedi Council offer Qui-Gon a seat at the Jedi Council, and because he just has all this self-doubt about himself as a master and about when he was a Padawan, he kind of strayed from the norm and didn't always follow rules. Yoda senses that as well, and he himself didn't even pick Qui-Gon for this opportunity. He says so himself. He's like, I didn't choose, the Jedi did, and I'm just standing by their decision. And ultimately he'll make a decision later on, but he doesn't tell Obi-Wan right away. Obi-Wan finds out by third party that he was offered the position in the Jedi Council. So Obi-Wan right away again feels like he's being left out of the loop. His master won't even tell him the truth and everything that's going on. Like, I guess the relationship is just not as strong as it should be. Obi-Wan feels that way. But anyways, they go into this mission, and we meet more new characters, and Rael Overos, who was a friend of Qui-Gon, still is, but he left the Jedi Council. He wasn't on the Jedi Council, but he leaves Coruscant, he leaves the Jedi Temple, because he had a pretty dark past with his Padawan, and now he's pretty much on this planet Pajal, and he's got this long-term assignment to watch over Princess Fenri, who's like a young girl, and she's growing up to become like the queen of the planet, of the people on Pajal. And there's, you know, Zerka's this outside organization who's trying to control the planet, and all this, you know, political stuff going on. And basically Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are trying to navigate the people there. Obi-Wan is trying to figure out this Rael guy, and also follow by Qui-Gon's lead. And again, it's this mission of them doing research on the planet and learning about the people, trying to investigate this also outside operation, the opposition group that's trying to pretty much assassinate the princess. I don't want to start giving it all away. I'm pretty much giving it all away. But again, it's the most important part of this theme is just the relationships between them, between Qui-Gon with Dooku, and then now Qui-Gon with Obi-Wan. The ancient Jedi metaphors and the prophecies that Qui-Gon is so thoroughly obsessed with become a really big part in this, because Qui-Gon has pretty much like a dream, a vision of what's to come, and it's kind of a violent future, and he wants to avoid that at all costs. And it almost teeters. I mean, I got a lot of impression that it teeters right there with, is Qui-Gon kind of sort of leading down to the dark side, but not really, because obviously in the end we know that he doesn't, and in Phantom Menace it's obvious that he doesn't. He's very one with the Force. The Force is with me. He actually says that in the book, which is really awesome. But it really teeters there, and I got the impression that he almost was even tempted, because he's seen this vision and he all out feels it's going to happen, and he has read so many prophecies that it can come true, and he knows that these are the reasons why prophecies were written in the first place, was because Jedi in the ancient Jedi would have these dreams and these kind of prophecies, and they want to prevent any violent things from happening, or these crazy things that could happen. And I think with the timing of this book's release, some of the metaphors, some of the prophecies in there are almost hinting towards the prequel trilogy, and even the now sequel trilogy, because we have Kylo Ren, who knows what's going to go down with that guy. But we have I know I have them here, ones that pretty much foreshadowed to Anakin, and we know how intensely Qui-Gon felt in The Phantom Menace about finding the chosen one. There's something about this kid, and he just felt so strongly about it, and that really this story and the way that Qui-Gon felt about prophecies backed that whole sense that he had with it. And Obi-Wan is like, really? Like, this kid? Do you really think there's something about it? Because Obi-Wan just does not take these prophecies seriously. I'm sure he wish he did, because Qui-Gon is so thoroughly invested in them, and that he wants to believe Qui-Gon so badly, but he just is too much of a realist, and can be realistic, and says this dream is not going to come true, it's just a dream, maybe you're anxious, like that's just what makes sense. He doesn't really believe in these prophecies. And the same thing in Phantom Menace, he doesn't believe Qui-Gon has a legit reason to think this kid is the chosen one, but he, you know, takes his word, and he raises and trains Anakin anyway. So some of those prophecies kind of foreshadowed to Anakin. Some of the ones that Qui-Gon goes on to read out loud: only through sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done to the nameless. I feel like that kind of is geared towards kind of the Clone Wars, or like Order 66, and now the Jedi are fallen, and it's supposed to in some way bring peace, or later it's supposed to be, or it's going to happen anyway, like it's inevitable, but eventually like this had to happen, because in the future the nameless, like the innocent, can be freed, and there can be peace. All kinds of ones. There's a crazy like egg one that kind of foreshadows, I don't even know, but the danger of the past is not past, but sleeps in an egg. When the egg cracks, it will threaten the entire galaxy. Palpatine. I mean, he's not literally an egg, but he could be hiding in the Death Star, you know, in the water all this time, that he's the evil, not from the past, but it's hiding, it's hidden, and he's just waiting for the right time to strike again and have another puppet and go after Kylo or go after Rey. This other prophecy, when the Force itself sickens, past and future must split and combine. A chosen one shall come, born of no father, and through him will ultimate balance in the Force be restored. Honestly, I think him might be because they're just ancient Jedi, but it could be a her very well, Jedi, not as a Jedi, but Rey, it could mean her, and it's just using the term, well, it's just saying him because they're old dudes, but it could totally be Rey, be a girl. And when the Force itself sickens, so Force Awakens, beforehand the Force was not being used, besides, you know, Luke and Kylo Ren, but the Force was not being used, and now it's awakened, and past and future must split and combine. Now we're combining the present, or like the future of the galaxy with the past of Palpatine's evil. Like, he's been there, all of these sequels, all these trilogies he's been involved with, and he'd been the evil. A chosen one shall come, born of no father. Rey has no parents, and through him, her, ultimate balance in the Force be restored. I think Rey. I say Rey. It gets pretty intense with foreshadowing and the background story of Qui-Gon Jinn. It's mainly about him. I think it does show a lot about Obi-Wan and how he became the way he is in the prequel trilogy. And there's actually another part of this book is the humor. There's actually a pretty good amount of humor here and there. I think Claudia Gray's description of Qui-Gon's hair is pretty funny. Just picturing his hair blowing in the wind or something with his half like hair tied back was really funny. And the new characters that were introduced were great. They were secondary kind of background characters, but that involved an entire other story. I think with the timing of this book, in the year that this book came out, months until, we have like half a year somewhat until Rise of Skywalker, that it could provide some pretty good foreshadowing in this book. With prophecies that have been around for years, for generations. So if you haven't read it, pick it up. Really great read. The battle descriptions and the fighting scenes are really, really awesome, and some of these key moments are huge for Obi-Wan's character himself. So it was really great to see more in depth, another layer added to Obi-Wan, somebody who's been in all of these movies and a huge part of the story. So I thought it was really great. I can never make these videos short, I'm sorry, but go enjoy Master and Apprentice, because I did.